What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Chaos. My name is Vlad, the-tek, and today we're going to be talking about sensory processing disorder. What is sensory processing disorder, and what the hell does it have to do with people with autism? Sensory processing disorder is a disorder, of all things, where the brain has trouble interpreting things that are coming from your outside senses. Typically, it's divided into 8 main subtypes. Of course, we have touch, hearing, taste, smell, and sight. Then we have proprioception. This is basically your internal awareness of your body in space. Vestibular, basically how well you can keep yourself balanced. And interoception, or how you feel and what's happening inside your body. There are often 2 different ways that this disorder can kind of present itself. One way is that your senses are hyperactive. People who have hyperactive senses will try to avoid certain situations like being hugged, for instance, or certain sounds, tastes. Sometimes they'll constantly be putting stuff in their mouths if they're children. They may also suffer from things like low pain tolerance, for instance. They may appear clumsy. They may flee certain situations without regard to safety, covering their eyes and ears to avoid sounds and bright lights, and often have picky food preferences. Or if you're hyposensitive, which means you don't feel loud enough, I guess, you'll have a high pain threshold. You may bump into walls, you may like touching things, putting things into your mouth, giving bear hugs, or frequently crash into other people or things. The best way you can probably describe it is by saying that if you have hypersensitivity to your senses, then you experience too much of the world. Lights are too bright, sounds are too loud, smells are too smelly, or it's the exact opposite from people who are hyposensitive. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because autism and sensory processing disorder have comorbidity. Again, it's kind of like having alexithymia. If you're autistic, chances are very likely that you also have some sort of sensory processing issue. I'm one of those lucky people who have hypersensitivity, so I experience light sounds on an extreme end. My physical senses are turned up to 11 like all the time. Now, that is not to say that if you have sensory processing disorder that you are automatically autistic either, because not all people with sensory processing disorder are autistic, and not all autistic people have this sensory processing disorder as well. It is, however, far more it's just more likely that if you're autistic, you'll have SPD. Now, there is some interesting research that is currently being done on people with ADHD and sensory processing disorder, because there is also some suggested comorbidity there. Somewhere between 40 and 60% of people who have ADHD may also be classified as also having sensory processing disorder. There's still a little bit more research that needs to be done. However, it is very possible that if you have ADHD, chances are you might also have sensory processing disorder. I lucked out. I'm both autistic and have ADHD, so I sure as shit got this. I've had to do a lot of things where I have to not be around bright lights. I avoid certain smells, especially very floral fragrances. For some reason, the smell of flowers, it's way overbearing for me. However, food fragrances like mint, it's perfectly fine for me to be around those. For some reason, I like those. But for some reason, things like lavender especially. Lavender is the worst offender, which really pisses me off because everyone fucking likes it. I hate it, can't stand it. Realize that if you like lavender, you're fucking wrong. Sorry, but I'll save that rant for another day. Also, things like going to a grocery store can be kind of overbearing because I'm around loud sounds, people, and lights that tend to flicker and be really, really bright. Part of the reason why I have noise-canceling headphones, it's so I can help drown out some of the ambient noise so that my stress is kept at a lower level. That's actually why I'm wearing them now, even though there's really nothing going on. These are completely silent aside from, this noise-canceling part. And really kind of the shocking thing that I deal with on a daily basis is dogs. And the fact that they bark. And they're really loud. I think there's kind of a reason why I've actually stuck to just owning cats from now on. It's because dogs are kind of a handful for me. Not saying that I don't like dogs. I actually love dogs. The issue I tend to have is when the dog isn't well trained or is really anxious. But when a dog barks, it's almost an immediate trigger for me. Which is weird because if you watch my Borderlands 2 video, which you'll probably have a link here in the corner, there was a dog barking during that recording session. On the bright side, I was able to drown it out with these, which a little bit. It doesn't always work. It kind of helps to have something going on inside there, which is why I'm kind of looking around for even better noise-canceling headphones than this. Even though these guys are really great, I know there's other options out there. Also, these aren't socially acceptable when you're out in public for some reason, which, by the way, fuck off. Also, one thing that a lot of people love, which I can't stand, is puppy kisses. Just the feeling of their drool is... it's making me gag just thinking about it. Very itchy skin now. So now that we know what it is, and now we know who's more likely to have it, and the fact that you can have it even if you're not autistic or have ADHD, now that we know all that, what can we do about it? Like I said, you can avoid stimuli to try to help out. You could also, but really the best course of action is to actually go to therapy. There are a few different types of therapies to choose from, and I'm going to read them off my monitor over here. Why? Because I will forget them, like, almost immediately. Physical therapy using sensory integration approach. Vision therapy to improve eye motor skills for people who have trouble reading, merging into traffic, or writing. If you guys have watched my channel long enough, you probably know that sometimes I trip over my own words when I'm reading. I think we figured out why. Listening therapy, which asks people with auditory issues to listen to a variety of sound frequencies and patterns to stimulate the brain while doing other motor tasks like walking on a balancing beam. There's that reading thing. Psychotherapy for people who have developed a mood disorder or anxiety because of SPD, which I might fall into that category, as well as speech and language therapy. The listening therapy one on this list, as a matter of fact, you can actually just reword it to actually mean exposure therapy, which actually doesn't work. I found out that to have negative effects because I've personally tried it. Then again, if it works for you, it works for you. The problem is when you're autistic, you also tend to get overstimulated, which can lead to a meltdown or a shutdown, which is something you really try to avoid. I remember going to work back when I started working in 2012, which was a long-ass time ago by now. I would have to be around loud noises and bright flickering lights all day long. I came home, I didn't want to do anything, I didn't want to hear anything, I wanted no part of the world after that. Because it takes so much energy to try to mask just how bad you're doing. Which is probably the next video I need to talk about, is masking and why that is actually good and bad for you at the same time. Which, by the way, I'm currently masking right now. Not with the eyeshadow. Masking is a much broader topic, I'll talk about that some other time. But yeah, essentially exposure therapy was kind of the thing that actually made me develop anxiety, because I knew exactly when to expect the sounds and what I was going to have to deal with. So it kind of made me want to just shut down and avoid the situation, or it made me hostile towards going to certain situations as a whole. So exposure therapy, not really the best for people with autism. Psychotherapy is actually a pretty decent way to help cope with SPD and the anxiety around it, as well as just learning social cues to alert people who are nearby that, hey, you've just got to leave the situation for a minute, as well as vocational therapy. This is a huge one. Honestly, if I had access to this, I would be using it right now. When you're autistic, a lot of it is just learning that you can't necessarily control the environment around you, but you can control how much of the environment you have to experience. So with that in mind, just have a support system in place where if you need to, like, let's say you're at work and the sounds are getting to you, arrange with your employer to like go to a quieter place for a little bit, or a place that just doesn't have a lot of flickering fucking lights. That's actually part of the reason why I actually liked to take my breaks outside when I first started working, was because I was away from those flickering fluorescent lights that would just wear on me after a while. If I could take more frequent breaks, I probably would have, but for the longest time, I just straight up didn't want to tell anyone that I was autistic. As far as the other therapies though, they actually come in pretty handy if you're autistic. Anyways, that's all the time I've got for the day. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section below, especially if I missed something. However, if you want to communicate with me more directly, check out the links in the description below to my Discord channel. And while you're down there, you might as well take a look at my Twitch channel. I will be streaming every Friday. I'm thinking about changing it to where I'm streaming in the afternoon instead of the morning, but I'm not sure what time yet. So definitely follow me on there and check out the schedule. Just check out to see the updates when it happens. And while you're in the description, you could also jump over to Patreon and support me directly there. And I'm going to gather some notes, and with any luck, if I remember, hopefully next week we will talk about masking and all the joy and not so joyous things that come with that. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed it, feel free to show me some love down below by hitting the like button, and don't forget to check out the annotations for more videos. And I will see you in the next video.